So let's talk about this past season. Of course, anybody who knows my talks always start with building a weather-ready nation, and I'm emphasizing it here because I really believe that we saw the fruits of this entire effort, not only from the point of the Weather Service, but from the point of the entire enterprise, not only with the better forecast and warnings that were provided during this hurricane season, but the connecting the forecast to decision-making at the federal, state, local levels was really unprecedented. And we'll touch upon that as we move through this presentation. One of the first things that you have to show for Harvey is the GO 16. I just want to remind folks we were in the engineering checkout phase when this image was taken. We received this in real time at the Hurricane Center. We were ready, actually before day one of operations. And you see this tremendous amplification going on. This is that amplification from a 2 to a 4. We still have intensity issues, folks, but we were using this data in real time in the local forecast offices to direct evacuations and also for the first responders to get in there as quickly as possible to rescue people who decided to stay behind. The other thing about Harvey, which is interesting, is the track forecast for this. There were some challenges at days 7, 6, and 5 as Harvey as a tropical wave or depression crossing the Yucatan and exactly where it would go, but it quickly locked in on the Texas coast and then the stall right near the coast, actually coming back out and then moving up. So that track forecast was extremely important because that stall, of course, is what led to the extreme rainfalls. Now, this is the first time we've ever predicted 50+ inches of rain. I can tell you that the email traffic was kind of interesting coming into us, but also the interaction with the emergency management community. Being co-located in places like Houston and Corpus Christi, where our forecasters were co-located and working or embedded with the local emergency operations centers, was absolutely critical to get them to believe in that forecast and the ramifications of it. And this was a big success in places like Houston and Beaumont in the sense that people were ready and we provided the information that they needed to address this flood. And the forecast itself verified. We're still wrapping our heads around that it actually worked out. In fact, later forecasts that as the max moved up to eastern Texas also verified with over 60 inches of rain in eastern Texas with this event. Then there's Irma. Irma was broke all kinds of records. So one of them being a Category 5 for three days straight, coming across. Of course, at this time, all eyes were already on Florida, and the prediction of the right-hand turn. And you see there's that little skim across the coast of Cuba. And then there's the right-hand turn up the west side of Florida. The forecast for this, there were varying forecasts. You see the Hurricane Wharf forecast into Florida. The important part about this is this was, of course, there were uncertainties. East side of Florida, west side of Florida. We were communicating to Florida that they had a big risk facing them. And what's really amazing about this is that the governor of Florida actually declared a state of emergency over 6 days before landfall. So wrap your head around that. On a Monday for a Saturday landfall, and it wasn't the Monday after Saturday, it was the Monday before Saturday. So, and that verified. And Florida was ready. And by the way, the surge forecast was actually worse for the storm going up the west side of Florida than going up the east side of Florida, because the east side of Florida were in southeasterly winds longer with this kind of a track. So communicating, not letting your guard down to the whole east and southeast, east coast of Florida and southeastern United States was a big challenge for us. Maria, this was an incredible storm system, of course. The big issue here from storm development is the 1 to a 5, category 1 to a 5 in 18 hours. absolutely remarkable. The track forecast was very good across Puerto Rico. So the impact-based assistance support services we were providing Puerto Rico really pointed to this being a devastating storm system for that. And of course, we see the news, we're still in a recovery mode across the entire island with respect to that storm. There's the forecast, and you know what's really important on this particular storm was that it entered Puerto Rico on the southeast side and basically affected the whole island. There was really no place to hide with this. And like I said, we're still providing IDSS, impact-based assistance support services. Our radars were destroyed. We've been working with DOD and the FAA. DOD has gotten some of their radars in there so to provide some coverage, and as the FAA repairs the radar that existed on Puerto Rico. What I want to emphasize here, and things that perhaps you don't see what's happening behind the scenes, what we have here is a list for the various storms and the number of days ahead of the landfall that we were actually working with our partners in the emergency management community at the federal, state, and local levels. And you can see, like for Irma, we have external engagements actually started a week in advance. I mean, for Harvey, a week in advance, Irma, 11 days, Maria, 5 days. Being embedded for almost a week. We don't invite ourselves, we get invited into these operation centers. There's all hands on deck, internal staffing surges to affected offices. So we're making decisions based on our own forecast to make sure that we're properly staffed to deal with these issues. And of course, the collaboration calls, which provides the consistent product and services that everybody needs. There are decisions today being made on forecasts that I never imagined would happen when I was a student coming into this effort many, many years ago. And it was absolutely amazing to see the tough decisions that have to be made based on forecasts that we know are not perfect. But if they don't make these decisions early on, their whole response to the hurricane is affected. Real quick, let's step back. For Andrew, there was actually policies that said don't use global models for forecasting. So that's where we were in the early 90s. Of course, Andrew was the first, I think, hurricane that actually had an L on the forecast, on the model forecast map that people could track. The policy was changed after that, and we worked with a hurricane forecast improvement program, or actually that was the Hurricane at Landfall program at the U.S. Weather Research Program. For Katrina, you see we were actually accelerated use of models for 5-day forecasts, but there was a wide cone of uncertainty. You see for Irma, we're making forecasts 10 days in advance, and the cone of uncertainty is a lot narrower. Those track changes have really been remarkable in terms of track improvement forecasts have been remarkable. We still got big issues with intensity forecasts that we need to focus on. But it's also the impact-based assistance support services. We won't read all this, but in Andrew, the response was our first interaction with the emergency management community in a big way. It took 2 days before FEMA actually started responding to Andrew after landfall. And you can see what Katrina had its pluses and minuses. Harvey, Irma, and Maria were really amazing to watch in terms of the consistency of messaging, the ready, set, go mode. We were all in a week in advance, and I believe that worked to save lives and keep the death counts for the 2 of those storms below 100. Puerto Rico, that's still an issue in terms of even determining how many people died in that storm. So in a personal view, I think the ongoing enterprise and National Weather Service efforts to connect forecast and decision making is actually making history. We're doing it in ways that we dreamed about as students and as researchers. It's actually happening now, and we should recognize it and be proud of it. But we still have work to do. To the extent that it's working, there's still a lot more research to be had, and a lot more research in the social science arena for us to get a better understanding of how to connect forecasts to decisions, given the amount of uncertainty we still have in our models a week in advance. The summary and challenges, the biggest challenges, I got to tell you folks, there's expectations we can do this every time. We can't do it every time. There are storm systems that have more uncertainty than others. The biggest science challenge is intensity changes. Biggest service challenge is to sustain the consistent enterprise feed into impact-based decision support services. So no matter where they're getting the message from, whether service, media, private sector folks, that there's a consistency of, because lives depend on that. And the biggest opportunity is that the enterprise is on board and the political support is there. The Weather Act is a statement of the Hill's support for what we do and prioritize what we need to address. The Hurricane Forecast Improvement Program is actually called out in that act. Thank you very much.